The microphone squealed as the first reporter shouted her name. She froze behind the black curtain, fingers tightening around her phone as the screens in front of her flickered to life. Her father stepped up to the podium, adjusted his cufflinks and smiled like a man announcing a charity gala, not the hostile takeover of his daughter's life. "Effective immediately," he said, voice calm, rehearsed, "I will be assuming full control of Arden Global." The room erupted. Did she agree to this? Was she forced out? Is the company in trouble? He lifted a hand. "My daughter signed the documents herself." Behind the curtain, she felt the words hit her chest like a punch. Her phone vibrated again. Message after message. Board members. Executives. Friends. "Did you know about this? Is this real? Why didn't you tell us?" She whispered to herself, barely breathing. This was supposed to be temporary. Just 12 hours earlier, she had been sitting across from the same man in his private study, sunlight cutting through the glass walls, her billion-dollar skyline spread behind her like a trophy she had earned alone. "You're blinded," her father had said, folding his hands. "That man is with you because of your money." "That's not true," she snapped. "He loved me before the headlines knew my name." Her father leaned back. "Then you won't mind proving it." She laughed at first. "Proving what?" "Give it all up," he said calmly. "Just for a while. Let me take control. Lose the money, the power, the protection. See who stays." She stared at him. "You're asking me to destroy my life." "I'm asking you to expose a lie." Her voice trembled. "And when the test is over?" "I give it back," he said smoothly. "Every share. Every property. I swear it." She should have walked away. She knew that now. But love has a way of making smart people reckless. 30 days, she said. "That's it." He slid the folder across the desk. "Of course." She didn't see the smile then. She was too busy thinking about the man waiting for her downstairs. Now, as her father answered questions and the cameras flashed, security gently touched her arm. "Ms. Arden," the guard said quietly, "we need to escort you out." "Out?" she repeated. "This is my building." The guard didn't meet her eyes. By the time she reached the street, her access cards were dead. Her driver had been reassigned. Her assistant's number went straight to voicemail. Her phone rang. She answered, forcing her voice steady. "Did you see the news?" There was a pause. "Yeah. I'm watching it now." "Is it real?" "It's a test," she said quickly. "Just a test." "For who?" he asked. "For us." Another pause, longer this time. "Okay," he said. "Then we'll get through it." She clung to those words like a life raft. The penthouse was gone by nightfall. Accounts frozen. Cards declined. She stood at the counter of a quiet rental office, heat creeping up her neck as the clerk slid her card back. "It's not going through." She tried another. Then another. "I'll pay cash," she said, then realized she didn't have that either. She called him from the sidewalk, embarrassment sharp in her throat. "Can I stay with you? Just for a bit?" "Of course," he said. "Don't be silly." His apartment was small. Not in a charming way. In a way that made her knees knock against the table when she sat. But she smiled, kicked off her shoes, and told herself this was good. This was real. "We'll laugh about this later," he said, pulling her into a hug. "Money doesn't matter." That night, she slept on his couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying her father's promise. The next morning, headlines screamed her downfall. Her father's face filled every screen. "She was unprepared," he said in one interview. "This is for the good of the company." She stormed into his office unannounced, heart racing. "You said 30 days. He didn't look up from his papers. "And?" "You're selling properties," she said. "Firing people." "Restructuring," he corrected. "You handed me the wheel." "You promised?" "I promised to protect the empire," he said, finally meeting her eyes. "And I am." She left shaking, calling him as she stepped into the elevator. "He's crossing lines," she said. "But it's okay. I can handle it." There was a sigh on the other end. "Maybe you should just apologize to him." "For what?" "For everything," he said. "He wouldn't be doing this if you hadn't pushed him." That stung, but she swallowed it. Weeks passed. At first he was patient. He cooked cheap meals and joked about budgeting. He told her stories about growing up without money, about how this was character building. Then the joke stopped. "You used to tip better," he said one night, half laughing. She smiled weakly. "I'll make it up to you someday." He began taking calls in the other room. Coming home late. Rolling his eyes when she suggested plans that didn't involve spending. Can we not talk about money tonight? He snapped once. I wasn't, she said quietly. She watched her father dismantle her life from a distance. Her company's name stripped from buildings she had commissioned. Loyal executives escorted out with boxes in their hands. She confronted him again, voice shaking. This wasn't the deal. He smiled, thin and sharp. You wanted the truth. I'm giving it to you. The truth about what? About power, he said. And how easily you gave it away. That night, she returned to the apartment to find him irritated, scrolling through listings on his phone. What's that? She asked. Nothing. Those are apartments. He shrugged. Just thinking. About leaving? About upgrading, he said, then laughed. When things go back to normal. Her chest tightened. If they don't? He didn't answer. The next day she overheard him in the hallway, voice low, careless. I mean, obviously I'm not stupid, he said into the phone. She's a billionaire. This won't last. You don't walk away from that kind of money forever. She pressed her back to the wall, breath shallow. Yeah, he continued, chuckling. I just need to ride it out. The call ended. The door opened. He froze when he saw her. How long were you standing there? He asked. Long enough, she said. He tried to explain. He always did. Words tumbled over each other, apologies that sounded rehearsed. She nodded, calm in a way that scared even her. I need air, she said. Outside the city roared, uncaring. She looked up at the skyline she had built and felt something inside her harden. The test was over. And both men in her life had failed. She wiped her face, pulled out her phone, and dialed a number she hadn't used in months. Activate the clause, she said quietly. On the other end, a woman exhaled. Are you sure? She looked back at the apartment window, then at the glowing towers beyond. Absolutely. The silence on the line lasted only a second, but it felt like a lifetime. Then we move now, the woman said. No delays. She ended the call and stood still for a moment, letting the city noise wash over her. There were no tears left. Whatever had broken inside her had already hardened into resolve. She didn't go back upstairs. Instead, she walked until her legs ached, replaying every warning she had ignored, every instinct she had silenced for love and approval. By the time the sun dipped behind the buildings, she knew exactly what she would say to both men when the time came. Her phone buzzed. A message from him. Where are you? We need to talk. She didn't reply. 2 days later, the first crack appeared in her father's perfect victory. A legal notice landed on his desk just as he was preparing for another interview. He skimmed it once, frowned, then read it again more slowly. What is this? He snapped, calling his assistant back into the room. The assistant swallowed. It's a challenge to your authority, sir. From Arden Holdings too. His jaw tightened. That company is dormant. It was, the assistant said carefully. Until yesterday. Across town, she sat in a quiet conference room that didn't carry her name, listening as lawyers spoke in calm, precise tones. The clause is airtight, one of them said. He can control the original company, but he cannot touch the assets transferred under this structure. She leaned forward. And the employees? Over half have already signed on, another lawyer replied. They were waiting for you. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. Her father's press conference that afternoon didn't go as planned. A reporter raised her hand. Sir, are you aware your daughter still controls a parallel entity holding significant assets and intellectual property? His face stiffened. That's irrelevant. It's not, the reporter pushed. Markets are reacting. Phones buzzed across the room. Stocks wavered. Whispers spread. Back at the apartment, he watched the coverage alone. She hadn't come home the night before. He told himself she was being dramatic. His phone rang. Hey, he said casually. You okay? I'm fine, she replied. We need to talk. Relief washed over him. Good. I was worried you were overthinking things. I'm coming by tomorrow, she said. Pack your things. There was a pause. What? I'm done, she said simply and ended the call. The fallout was swift. Executives her father had fired began resigning publicly from his company. Contracts he thought were secure dissolved overnight. Partners froze negotiations, citing uncertainty. He stormed into his office late that night to find her waiting, calm, seated in his chair. You planned this, he said, voice shaking with fury. I prepared, she corrected. There's a difference. You tricked me. She met his eyes. You taught me how. He laughed bitterly. You think this makes you powerful? No, she said. It makes me free. He leaned closer. You could have had everything. I did, she replied. I just didn't realize how much of it I was giving to the wrong people. She stood, smoothing her jacket. You'll receive formal notice tomorrow. Don't contact me again unless it's through counsel. He watched her leave, the weight of his own ambition settling heavily on his shoulders. The next evening she returned to the apartment one last time. He was already packed, boxes stacked neatly by the door. He tried to smile. I knew this would blow over, he said. So, what now? She looked at him for a long moment. Now you tell me the truth. He sighed, rubbing his temples. I stayed because I believed in us. She didn't react. And because, he added, softer, I believed things would go back to how they were. That's the truth? She asked. Yes. She nodded once. Thank you. For what? For not lying anymore. She handed him an envelope. Your train ticket. You'll be gone by morning. You're really doing this, he said, disbelief creeping into his voice. I already did, she replied. He opened his mouth then closed it. There was nothing left to say. She locked the door behind him and stood alone in the quiet room. For a moment the emptiness pressed in. Then she exhaled long and slow. 3 months later, Arden Holdings II officially absorbed the remnants of the original empire. The headlines were different this time. Billionaire heiress stages historic comeback. Daughter outsmarts father in corporate reversal. Power shift shakes global markets. She declined interviews. Instead, she stood in front of the employees who had followed her into uncertainty, her voice steady. I lost everything once, she told them. And I learned exactly what mattered. Applause filled the room, not loud but real. That night, she returned to a penthouse she had chosen herself, not inherited. She poured a glass of water, not champagne, and looked out over the city. Her phone buzzed with one last message from her father. You didn't have to humiliate me. She typed, then deleted, then typed again. I didn't. You did that yourself. She blocked the number. As the city lights flickered below, she allowed herself a small smile, not of victory but of peace. She had tested love and found its limits. But more importantly, she had tested herself, and passed. If this story moved you, subscribe for more powerful stories about love, betrayal, and resilience. Comment below. Would you ever risk everything to test someone's love? And like this video if you believe self-respect is worth more than any fortune.